you would go to your software stuff and then different softwares call it like a receiver style. We happen to call it a survey style. And again, that's under menu, settings, survey style. And in this survey style, you could take one of your existing RTK survey styles and copy that, and then make edits to be able to use it cellularly or over the internet. So for our purpose, that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to just copy a survey style that I know was working previously, maybe for radio. So that means all my other settings are correct, but I just now need to make a couple tweaks so it'll work with the Montana real-time network. So I'm going to hit copy here. When you hit copy, you're asked to give it a name, and I'm going to give that name a very good name too. So I know that I'm going to be doing RTK or using this as a rover for the Montana State Network. And in this case, I'm going to use this as a VRS versus single base, because we're going to cover both. And so I'm going to call this MTSRN and then underscore VRS rover. And so I know that in this survey style, I've built and made all the changes so it'll act as a VRS rover versus a single base rover. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. The reason why we're going to cover VRS is that in most networks, whatever state you're using, whether it's Minnesota or Washington or Utah or here in Montana, in a VRS scenario, an operator would prefer to use it that way a majority of the time. It's the easiest way, the safest way to get good, reliable positions. And that's just keeping it simple. So that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to hit enter and accept. And so now I've made a survey style that's called MTSRN underscore VRS rover. And now I'm going to edit that survey style so it'll work properly. All right. So a couple gotchas, at least from Trimble operators, is that under the rover options, they leave the broadcast format set up for CMRX. And if you do that, then this survey style is really only looking for single bases. It's not looking for VRSs, because the broadcast format dictates to the software on how to look at mounts. And you'll see this make more sense as I go hot here. So if you hit the down arrow, if you're another manufacturer, you probably have a broadcast format set up as RTCM, RTK. And again, if you chose that, it would dictate that you only see mounts a certain way also. So just remember that the broadcast format on most manufacturers is dictating how you see your mounts. So we know that we want to use this as a VRS rover. And so I want to then choose to use the correct broadcast format that I'm receiving as my rover. That would be either VRS RTCM if I'm on another manufacturer, or VRS CMR, which is CMRX if I'm a Trimble operator. Or by the way, if you're a Trimble operator and you're working within a network and they only are providing VRS but RTCM, because that way it works for everybody, a Trimble receiver can choose to use VRS RTCM. However, I know that this network actually has mounts for both VRS RTCM and VRS CMR. And so I'm going to choose, because it's a Trimble receiver, to use VRS CMR. In today's demonstration, I'm using an R12 in my emulator. You would have to make sure you choose the right receiver. And we know our rod is running a 2-meter fixed height. And so I'm going to plug that in. We also know that the rover can only get the information that the base has. One of the awesome things about being a newer VRS network is that many of the stations within the Montana real-time network are complete GNSS, which means it supports Galileo, Beidou, QZSS, and GLONASS. There's only, I believe, 5 stations, and we can go into the weeds afterwards, that are not, and then and we can look at why and when you might want to turn one of these off. But if you have them all turned on your rover, you're only going to receive what you're getting from the base anyways. So it's not really a big deal to have this turned on if your receiver supports multi-constellation. So I'm going to leave everything turned on here, okay? So I'm going to go to accept. And now the final change, because this was a working survey style, is I have to go to the rover data link that was traditionally set for UHF radio. Now, this one has been changed to say internet connection, but if it did say internal radio, you would want to change it to say internet connection and then choose that connection. So in this case, if I hit the right arrow here, I've made this style for VRS, and then I'm going to accept that. And if you are a surveyor that happens to work in multiple states, like Washington, Minnesota, Utah, etc., you could actually, remember, had built other connections. And so then, therefore, you might want to prompt so you don't actually have to have a survey style that actually specifically states MTSRN. It just says VRS rover, and you'll get prompted every single time to choose which one you want. In this case, we know we're only demonstrating for MTSRN, so I'm not going to prompt. Now, the GNS internet source is how my rover is getting that internet or that correction service from the MTSRN. And 90% of the time, it'll always be controller internet. And so there's no need to prompt again for that. But you could prompt if you were switching for some reason. And the other choices here are receiver modem, receiver Wi-Fi, cable. But really, most operators out there, they're using hotspots, internal SIMs, or a hotspot to a phone. So the controller is actually getting internet from that device, or from internally. So that's what we're going to choose. Some of your receivers, you would put SIM cards in them, and then you would choose this mode here. Just in case you don't see it, that mode there. So I'm not going to prompt for anything because I just want it to go to there and use the internet. And now I'm going to store that.